morning. It's 8:30 on our Wednesday, and we're here with Charlie O'Hara. Thanks for coming back into the studio for us.
Great to be here.
We're excited to listen to some of these legal questions, hopefully get them answered.
All right.
First caller, you're on the line. What's your question?
Yes, hi. My name is Brett, and I had to go to court for phone harassment. It's only one text, and the prosecutor wants me to spend, the deal is, the prosecutor wants me to spend 4 weekends in jail plus pay $106, and I need to know what my chances are of pleading my case to the judge, and does one phone text consider phone harassment?
Well, obviously everything depends on the circumstances of what's done. I mean, if one text says the right things, it can be pretty much harassment. It can be a threat. It can be a lot of things. If you say you're going to kill somebody and do other things to them, that's a very serious matter. If it's just something like, hey, what's going on, it's obviously not a threat. It depends on the circumstances of what's said there. And people should be careful when they threaten people, or threaten obviously, but be careful when they text people, because people can take what you say wrong. So you have to be very careful, because there's no inflection of your voice or anything like that. You've got to be careful. I can't tell you what your chances are in court. If you want to contest a charge, the judge will listen and decide whether he thinks you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's what the burden is. And usually, if you're facing time in jail, I think I would advise you, it would be best for you to get an attorney in a case like that. You don't want to fool around with something where you can go to jail. You need to have representation, listen to your legal representative, and do what they say. I think that'd be best for you. Okay?
Thanks, Charlie. Good advice. Let's get back to the phones. Caller, what's your question?
Yes, I bought an engine off of eBay. It was about, I don't know, I spent $3,000 on the engine. I spent another $7,000 on the install of the engine. And I had the engine in my truck for a week. I put less than 700 miles on the engine, and I have water in the oil. I was just curious, do I have a case against this guy? He told me he's willing to replace the engine, but he's not willing to replace any of the money that I put in to do the labor work.
Well, I mean, that's obviously something you're going to have to negotiate. Anytime you buy something that's not new or not from a reputable dealer, you have to be real careful what you're dealing with. I don't know the circumstances. It sounds like the guy's somewhat standing behind it. If it gets something that you can't settle and you and he can't work out, well, then again, you're going to have to go to court. There's enough money involved in that from what you say. I think we're talking about $10,000 or so. You very well may want to consult an attorney about that, because I think that's something that where attorneys would come in. First of all, I always encourage people to settle things themselves, because getting attorneys involved costs money. But when you have a lot of money involved in something, you may want an attorney in there. So I think if you and he can't work it out to your satisfaction and his satisfaction, the seller, then you probably ought to get a hold of an attorney and see if you can get it straightened out. Okay?
Thank you, Charlie. Excellent advice. Does sound like we have a third caller on the line. Caller, what's your question for Charlie?
My question is, I was terminated I had an Atwill contract, and I took a gentleman up on bullying charges, and the same people, they terminated me for bullying, tried to, but I would not sign it, so then they just tore everything up and told me that I was an Atwill contract, and they didn't have to have an excuse to get rid of me, ma'am. Okay,
well, what an Atwill contract means is a lot of times you're hired and there's certain rules that you have to follow as to how they fire people, what they fire people for. An at-will contract means you have a job, but if they don't have any business, or if they want to get rid of you for whatever reason, they can get rid of you. However, there are limitations on that. You can't get rid of people because of their race, or because of their religion, or because of their sexual preference, or because they're a man or a woman, or even because they're real old or young. You can't get rid of them for that reason. You have to have legitimate reasons to get rid of anybody at any job.
So if this person feels like it's an illegitimate reason, they should contact an attorney, perhaps?
That's what I would recommend, yes.
Okay. Charlie, thank you so much for coming in. Great to talk with you as always. We'll be back with more Eyewitness News this morning. It's 8:34.